And welcome to the public meeting of Randwick Local Planning Panel on the 26th of May 2022. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I'm the chair of the panel. My name is Annalise Tour. Joining me today via video conference are Helen Lockhead and Jason Perica as expert members, and the community representative is Peter Ryan. Today we have two people registered to address the panel. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. Any extension of time will be at my discretion as chair. After hearing from the speakers, the public meeting will be closed and the panel will deliberate and make a decision. The minutes of the panel's decision, including our reasons, will be available on the council's website as soon as possible after the public meeting. You should be aware that panel meetings are recorded and the audio recording will be uploaded to council's website. Could I also ask everyone to please be on mute unless they're speaking or asking a question. Each of the panel members has been asked prior to the meeting to advise whether they have a conflict of interest to declare in relation to any item on the agenda, and I can confirm that no conflicts of interest have been declared. So the only item on today's agenda is for 263 to 269 Clovelly Road. And the first speaker is Mr. Richard Payton.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for allowing me to address the committee. I speak on behalf of 50 nearby residential households who are currently impacted by the childcare centre in our R2 low-density residential zone. We know we will be further impacted with any increase in children and staff numbers. Our major concerns are traffic safety, loss of residential on-street parking, and noise impacts from the two above-ground outdoor play areas. The context for our concerns dates from the original DA that requested 1. A centre for 145 children and 20 staff, when the biggest centres in our two zones in nearby suburbs had only 40 to 55 children. 2. A centre that was 3 stories tall, and 3, parking restrictions on public streets to provide drop-off and pick-up car spaces, since this childcare centre does not have any off-street spaces for parent access. Residents felt that this centre was far too big for our R2 zone, and, as expected, our initial concerns have been realised over the subsequent years. The DA was changed to request 90 children and 14 staff, and was approved by Randwick councillors in 2015. There have been 4 further DAs since for this site. 2 of these were for non-childcare related purposes. Both were approved by Randwick Council, being a caretaker's flat and a physiotherapy business. This business uses 1 childcare centre staff parking space, and their clients also use street parking. As the council staff reports note, there is observable very heavy pressure on residential street parking in the immediate vicinity of the childcare centre. In fact, 10 of the 16 closest households in Clovelly Road and Knox Street do not have any off-street parking. The DA in 2019 requested 122 children and extra staff. A trial of 102 children was approved. For the current DA, requesting 122 children and 19 staff, there is a substantial deficit in staff parking spaces, where 10 are required and only 7 are provided, and in parent access spaces, where 15 are required and only 8 are available. A traffic concern is that parents illegally stop in the bus and no stopping zones on Clovelly Road, blocking views of oncoming traffic. This makes the turn out of Knox Street extremely dangerous. Another concern is parents doing illegal U-turns at the bottom of Knox Street for drop-off and pick-up, which again is also extremely dangerous. This happens daily. So does this mean residents now need to complain to council on a daily basis? We are at a loss to understand why this childcare centre continues to seek to increase its numbers of children when it obviously fails to satisfy the operating requirements of the current numbers as regards staff parking and parent access. Of 11 nearby childcare centres surveyed in 2015, 9 continue to operate at the same numbers. Only 2 have had modest increases, and both in R3 zones and with better access arrangements. We therefore ask that the current trial of 102 children and 16 staff continues until its end date in 2023. Alternatively, any modest increase in numbers of children, and certainly not beyond 112, be subject to a 2-year trial period to June 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from panel members? All right, thank you. So the next speaker is Stephen White.
Good afternoon, panel. My name's Stephen White. I'm the town planner assisting the applicant. So this site has had a number of uses over the years, and obviously, formerly an RSL which operated, day and night for many years. In 2015, as was just explained, the first approval for the change of use to childcare occurred for 90 children, and the subsequent approval in 2019 originally sought for 123 places, but the approval was granted for 102 on a trial basis. And since that 2019, the applicant has been operating on that trial basis, and that in itself creates a deal of anxiety for parents and as well as the operator in terms of ongoing certainty. This current proposal sought 122, and we note the recommendation to perhaps reduce that in the officer's report. The proposal did come with a detailed plan of management that sought to support the additional increases in the numbers, and it can do so, and it can accommodate that without any physical required changes to the buildings. As stated in the council officer report, since the last approval, there's been no parking or operational complaints logged with council, as stated in their report. So it's been operating successfully at the 102 trial places since 2019. The site physically can accommodate 122, and that is why we sought that in our proposal. We note there's a growing need that continues to plague this area in terms of shortage of childcare places. Our client has over 200 people on a wait list alone waiting to get into this place. So there is certainly an imperative for council and the panel to consider the wider societal need. Council itself cannot provide all the childcare in their own right. So this provides a very important sort of function to the broader economy and community, and that waiting list is growing. And that is part of the reason why we are seeking to establish some certainty and clarity around a non-trial period approval. So our request would be that the panel considers the application as originally proposed at 122 staff, 122 children with 19 staff, and if it was of a mind to support that, we would be open to a trial period for the higher number that we originally sought. But contrary to the council recommendation, which is requesting recommending 112 children and 18 staff, we see no reason why that should at all be on a trial basis. This business requires some certainty. The families require certainty, and the condition 9, which says that if after 12 months that was not supportable, reverting back to 90 staff 90 children would be taking us back 7 years to the original consent, and is in our view grossly unfair, given the last 3 years it's been operating without concern to council, reported to council. So our request is that the panel seek to amend that recommendation and our preference would be for that full number being supported, and we would accept that on a trial basis. But at the minimum, we would be desiring that the 112 be as a permanent non-trial period consent.
Thank you. Any questions from panel members? Yes, Jason.
Just so I can understand the operation and at what capacity from when. So the DA approved in 2018, in December 2019, increased the numbers from 90 to 102 and 16 staff for a 12-month period. And I read somewhere there was open to capacity and closed for a period. Could you just explain the timing of and the capacity of the centre and for what period it was operating at 102 and what period it wasn't?
There was a small period during the start of COVID where the numbers dipped below 102 as part of the start of that pandemic. But as a result of when those changes were lifted and there was the government subsidies with respect to childcare, the numbers went back to full capacity to the 102. So it was. I understand. I don't have the numbers in front of me, Jason, but it was I'm understanding it was a very short period of time that a number of months or two that it was not at the full operational capacity. But the reason why we sought to extend the trial was because we couldn't necessarily do reasonable traffic generation and the like in the surrounding network because the traffic volumes were lower than standard, and we didn't want to be criticised for trying to put in reports that weren't sort of reflective of normal operating world, I suppose. So hence that trial was extended.
So just back to the operating capacity then. So December 12, 2019, got approval from 90 to 102. What stage after that did it start operating at 102? Very soon after, or
immediately?
Right. Okay.
And then we had the waiting list.
I think it was March 2020, the first lock. So there was a period where it was closed for a couple of months or so, or whatever that period was. Is that right?
I don't know if that's sure. I don't have.
No, we weren't closed. We were just operating at a lower capacity. Sorry, chime in.
Oh, okay. For what in the first, when the COVID outbreak happened, and again
just for a very short period,
and then a more recent lockdown last year, was it reduced again, or?
I'm not sure. We'll have to check the figures. I'm not sure what happened in that time after this, even if you have those numbers. But is there another question after this?
Well, I want to get to the bottom of the first question before the next one. I'm just trying to establish from the period in December 2019 to now, what are we talking? 2 years and 2.5 years roughly. How if you had to give it your best estimate of what number of months in that 2.5 years were you at capacity at 102 and what ones you weren't? I'm just trying to get a sense of that.
My understanding would be within sort of 2 to 3 months that it would not be at the capacity over that 2.5 years.
Might have been some short periods where it wasn't at full capacity, but the majority of that period from December 2019 to now has been at capacity with a long waiting list. Right, okay, thanks.
Certainly, yeah. We have a very long waiting list. We do our best to service everyone in the community. We're certainly very close to it, if not, added. But yeah, there was a very short period there where that was troublesome. Just with the initial COVID thing, everyone was staying indoors and the whole shebang. But we didn't shut down at all in any period.
All right. I've just got a question. Just in relation to the concerns raised by the objector on behalf of a number of other objectors in terms of issues to do with parents stopping in bus stops and the impact on view corridors and doing U-turns, etc. Do you have any comments about that? Have you observed that sort of behaviour and what sort of, if you have, what sort of steps do you take to minimise it?
Can I just add another kind of add-on to that question? is that I noticed there's a bus stop outside the childcare centre, and I'm just wondering what proportion of parents drop off by walking or busing and versus car drop off. Do you have that information available as well?
I believe that was in the traffic report that was attached to the application. I would have to just go back and check those figures, but that there was some work done in terms of that. There is a reasonable proportion of walk up and public transport portion, but because, as I said, of the shortage in the area, people are coming from wider areas as well. I think in the traffic in the council officers traffic report, it talks. It made the comment that all the observed parking and traffic impacts can't be directly attributable to the operation of the childcare centre, and so high demand off-street parking in Knox Street, is attributable to the nearby bus stop on Clovelly Road, and that was observed by the council's traffic officer, and as well as some and it's also observable with many of the Knox Street residents don't have access to off-street parking, so park on street. So this childcare centre, obviously there's the peak AM and afternoon period, and then when it closes, the street parking again becomes sort of available for those sort of local residents as well. So there's so it is, these things obviously don't operate all perfectly, and not everyone, it doesn't work perfectly for everyone all the time, but there is existing prevailing conditions of how the residents sort of operate as well that contributes to that local parking access issue.
Look, I don't want to jump in and give the answer for you, but I might, just only because I've got the traffic report open. On pages 10 and 11 of that, it breaks down the travel mode, to answer your question, Helen, on educators and parents. It says for the 16 educators, 5 come by car, 31%, 2 come by motorbike, or 12.5%, 2 come as a car by passenger. So 9 of the 16 come as by car or motorbike, and then 7 or
25% by bus.
Bus or walk, and then the parents is 53% by car, another 11% by an extra kid in the car, so 2. So if you add up the car drop-off, it's 53 plus 11, so 64%, and then 37%, or 53% it must be, then 37% walk. So 37% walk for parents, and the remainder 63% come by car, and there's a bit high. It's pretty similar for busing and walking, a bit higher for the educators. Sorry about that.
No, thank you for jumping in there. Good on you for having those numbers. Yeah, there is a very high percentage, more so than usual.
Sorry, can you just identify yourself, because you're not actually
I'm sorry,
the speaker.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if my name has come up. Yeah, my name is Harry Labrakis. I am one of the managers here at Roly-Poly and one of the owners of the property, my father. And Steve has the information there. But to answer the first question in regards to what we're doing in regards to the traffic, Steve, you can chime in regards to the management. Sorry, what was it? There's a management plan. Can you chime in, please, Steve?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So there is. Sorry, just before we jump off the modal split, I suppose the other thing to bear in mind with the increase in proposed increase in children is that because there's a long waiting list, there's a lot of families at the moment that are at the centre with multiple children. So the fact that seeking additional 20 children places doesn't necessarily mean 20 unique trips, given that we do have 10 to 15% of children in there which have multiple children from single families, so it's not an exponential increase. But yes, so back on the plan of management, which the parents who the new parents that come are all have explained to them in terms of how the drop-off pickup procedures operate and how the enrolment, all of those processes happen. So there's a detailed plan on that has been in place for some time. This has been updated further with this proposal, but that is something that the centre takes obviously very seriously, and it's a key part of how they manage the parking. Unfortunately, they can't police parking of illegal parking in the disabled spot that's outside the premises. That has been observed at times, and unfortunately, apart from reporting it to the ranger, they don't control that spot. But otherwise, that's the plan of management and the induction to parents is important part of the process.
And do you do any monitoring of the time period that people stay in the 15-minute parking?
That's right. So the proposed, then the suggested reduction from 15 to 10 minutes is obviously part of that part of this new revised plan, and that is how the operation will need to manage that with staff and with the parents.
But is there any monitoring of it, or is it, like, I imagine in some situations people would be quicker, and others they would be potentially longer. But what did your parents are just told that they're not meant to park there for more than 15 minutes when they're doing their drop-off?
Well, that's right. They're made aware of what the requirements are, and they obviously know how important. They've been operating under a trial period for 2 years, 3 years, and they know that if that trial period is not successful, there's 12 spaces taken out of the current approval, and no one wants that when they've been waiting on a waiting list. So the parents are motivated to adhere to the policies because they don't. We're currently operating with sort of this ongoing uncertainty of permanency of occupants in the building.
Madam Chair, if I could just jump in again. I would say, like, I've lived in Knox Street for 15 years, and since the childcare centre has opened, the increase in traffic and congestion and safety has been a real issue. And I think to increase the numbers yet again, which the original claim was 145 students, and then it went back to 90, but it's just slowly but surely creeping up. And when does it stop? And it says, Stephen has said that there.
I'll just have to interrupt you there because essentially you did have your 3 minutes, and at the moment the applicant's representative is largely responding to questions that the panel is putting to them. So I can check that whether there's any questions that the panel has of you, but I think it's more just us trying to clarify and get further information about the situation.
Okay. It's Jason Ryder here, Development Engineer. May I just chip in a bit, if it's okay? The council
really, we're just, at the moment, it's the panel asking questions. So I'll just ask the panel if they've got any further questions that they wanted to ask.
There was one question that you asked before that I thought it is addressed by a council condition, so I just wanted to clarify that. But please go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Annalise, probably you did give the opportunity to ask Richard. I'm not sure your surname was it Peyton or Laws. I looked through all the submissions for Richards, but I saw there was a bit.
Peyton.
Right, okay. I got admitted. Sorry, Annalise. Before I just want to be clear about what your request was. At the end of your submission, you said you thought a certain thing should happen, which is a exhibition to a trial to a certain capacity go on to this period and that. Can you just repeat what you're suggesting should happen?
Oh yeah. So I can read that to you again.
Point of order.
I just want to be clear on what I should have asked you before when Annalise asked for questions, but just that very last bit. I'm not asking for the whole submission, just what your suggesting the panel should do?
The current trial of 102 children and 16 staff continues until its end date in 2023. Alternatively, any modest increase in numbers of children, and certainly not beyond 112, be subject to a 2-year trial period to June 2024.
Right, okay. Thanks. Sorry about that, Annalise.
So any further questions of the applicant?
Just the one.
Peter, you've got a question?
Yeah, just checking that the applicant is happy with the condition regarding the disabled parking.
No.
No.
Well, the proposal sought to change the disabled parking, so that was part of our proposal, which was because we believe that it obviously serves our planning management has a way that we can manage that. That was not supported by council's traffic committee, so hence why the recommendation is what it is. But we believe that that really does warrant sort of reconsideration, given the usage that is actually happening, that's being we've experienced with that, and we think it would be in better interest for the wider community as well as the facility for that to have changed.
All right. Yes, Jason, you could.
One last question, just same to the neighbour, and I just want to understand so I'm totally clear on the applicant's position, which is you think there should be 122 and the base shouldn't be back to 90, it should be to 102 as you've had for the trial, and if there's any lesser number, the base should be 102, not 90. Is that right? That's what the applicant's saying. You want the full numbers, and then the base at the end of the trial, if there is a trial, to go back to what your previous numbers were, which were 102.
Well, we would not. Our request is that if we would accept 122 for a trial period, but if that was not supportable, that the 112 should be a permanent consent.
Sorry, 112.
Yes. We've been operating at 102 for 3 years almost, and as reported in the report, council has been supportive of that. So we see no reason why that would.
Oh, you're saying the base be 112, not the 102 you've been operating?
Well, yeah, we that would be the absolute minimum that we would request. That's what the officer, the officer report recommends 112 as a trial. We said at the least we would accept that without a trial period.
Oh, right. Okay. And then if it's above that, then a trial for above 112. Correct. Even if you haven't operated at 112. Right. Okay. I'm just trying to understand the positions. All
right.
Can I just also ask, like, if residents had complained on a daily basis about the traffic issues and the safety issues, that would make a difference, clearly. So
it's not necessarily a matter of complaining on a daily basis, but the purpose of trial periods is to basically get an understanding of how something operates and what the impact it's having on the amenity, particularly of adjoining residents. So I think, yes, if you have had concerns, it would have been in your interest to have expressed those concerns, so that then there's a clearer picture, because clearly council is not out there monitoring every day as to, whether there's congestion, et cetera, et cetera. So,
okay, understood.
So
Thank you.
if there's a trial period, it's a matter of keeping a record of what occurs, so that there's ideally any sort of an evidential basis for decision making to be made.
Sure, thank you.
All right, well, I think that's the end of the questions, and that actually concludes the public meeting. So as I said in my opening, the public meeting will now be closed and the panel will now deliberate and make our decision, and our decision and the reasons for our decision will be posted on the council's website as soon as possible. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Bye.